"67 years old when he assumed control of the Ordnance Department of the United States Army in 1861, Colonel James Ripley disdained innovations. He used every means possible to block the introduction of breech-loading weapons for the infantry, especially the rapid-firing Spencer rifle, which he claimed would only encourage men to, quote, waste ammunition, which is expensive. The story begins in 1852, when England sponsored the first of the modern World's Fairs. The American display was boxes of machined parts. Volunteers were taken from the audience, and within minutes were guided through the assembling of these parts into a fully functional Colt revolver, a masterpiece of precision interchangeable manufacturing. So revolutionary was this demonstration that the British Parliament assigned a commission to travel to America. Their first stop was at the Springfield Armory, which at this point was gearing up for mass production of the new Springfield rifled musket. Awed, the British government purchased a full working factory. Within 3 years, the British were producing their own rifled musket, the Enfield. The war in America caught the Federal Army completely flat-footed. The Army numbered less than 20,000, and their stockpile of modern weapons was nearly non-existent. Muskets dating all the way back to the Revolution cluttered many state armories. 3 days after the Confederates fired on Fort Sumter, Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers, and by the end of summer, calls went out for an additional 500,000 men. The problem of arming them landed squarely on Colonel Ripley's desk. The colonel made it clear that smoothbore weapons had worked well enough for him when he fought in 1812. If regiments insisted on rifled weapons, the rifled muzzle-loader should be good enough. Unfortunately, the Springfield Armory reported it would take a year or more to manufacture them. Any mention of turning to private arms manufacturers to build high-tech repeating weapons was rejected out of hand. A staff officer suggested buying Enfields from England. The Brits were offering rock-bottom prices since their army was upgrading to breech loaders. Ripley hit the roof. He'd fought the bloody British, and he'd be damned if he'd buy weapons from them. Besides, the war would be over in months, and if he bought anything, it better be American. A few days later, the staffer was back. Intelligence sources said the Confederates were in England negotiating for the Enfields. Ripley raged. If the Rebs wanted to buy those damn English guns, so be it. His soldiers would go to battle armed with American guns. The staffer made one last try. The federal government should outbid the Confederates to stop them from acquiring the stockpile. Even if Ripley wouldn't use them, at least the Enfields could be bought and dumped into the ocean, so the Confederates couldn't use them. The staffer was dismissed. 3 months later, at Manassas, over 35,000 Union troops went into battle, armed primarily with aging smoothbores. Their final assault up Henry Hill came within mere yards of carrying the day and breaking the back of Confederate resistance. That final gallant charge, however, was shredded by the concentrated volleys of Stonewall Jackson's men, armed primarily with newly issued Enfield rifles that could kill at 400 yards and were murderous at 100 yards or less, a range at which the smoothbores of the Union were still all but useless. Buckling to pressure from Lincoln, Ripley frantically tried to order Enfields, but by then the stockpile was in the South. In desperation, he turned to the Prussians and Belgians, who were more than eager to sell off their old muzzle loaders. These guns proved more dangerous to the man behind them than to the target in front of them. Without the Enfields, the Southern cause might very well have collapsed on the battlefields of 1861 and early 1862. Ripley's army lost most of their first battles because they were outgunned and outranged by the very rifles he could have bought.